We're basically going to talk about the things that we've done, my journey, Johnny's journey, Nina's journey, Lexi's journey, and how we've all engaged with each other at different stages. So this was me. I was like, when was I first involved in sustainability? Can you guess the picture? You don't get a prize for this. This is me with my grandmother's haircut in about 1982. And I guess I was always passionate about sustainability. I just didn't really know it. And a lot of people, when they're in their professional careers, think, when did you first get involved with sustainability? You sort of, it's kind of just like a door opens, right? And you meet the right people and you think, oh, I'm keen on that. But a lot of people said, yeah, I thought about this a lot as a child, as a teenager, but I haven't done anything for the last 20 years. And I did nothing, of course, until I was about 39, 40. And I was lucky enough to work in Scotland with people, and a sort of a note to Professor John Rowan, who lived in the same village that I did. Village is actually, there's a little village opposite Dundee. It also had Nicola in it, all of these academics that were working in Newport. But I said, I'm really keen to do a carbon footprint. And we're like, what's a carbon footprint? This is back in 2009. And we're like, I don't know, but Kidney Care's just done one. Let's just copy what they've done. And so we basically read the paper. There was only 4 or 5 carbon footprint papers in healthcare out there, and made it up a little bit by looking at what other people had done. The reason we're pointing this out is no one should be scared of sticking their foot in the water and understanding how to do this stuff, because we are all finding our way. And people call me an expert in sustainability. No one's really an expert. We're all lost. And then the next thing I did is I was lucky enough to be in Public Health England for all of 15, 16 months before they changed the organisation for the first time and many times. And of course now Public Health England doesn't exist. But I got a little bit of money from Public Health England, but I met with a couple of people from the Centre for Sustainable Healthcare and Sophie Saget. Sophie had a PhD, it was his PhD student at School of Botany. And I was like, I want to do some life cycle assessment. I've moved away from carbon footprinting now, but I had no idea how to do it. And I watched a YouTube video for 20 minutes and I've got the software, but can you help me? And this is kind of what we do, right? And this is what I'm encouraging all of you to do in the audience who don't know much about sustainability. Find someone, send an email out, say we're really keen to do a life cycle assessment of X, help us. We found Sophie. Sophie was working with chickpeas, and I said, Sophie, could you help us do toothbrushing mapping, etc.? And Sophie was like, yep, I'll give it a go. Now, so if you look at Sophie's CV, it's very confused. It's half on chickpeas and rice and sustainable cultivation, the other half's on fluoride. And I told her that's my goal in life, is to corrupt her CV and bring her into dentistry. And then I did an official qualification at Aarhus in Denmark and actually learned how to do life cycle assessment. And then it kind of exploded. But we've talked about the importance of mentoring. Now I'm talking about the importance of measuring. Anybody who's doing anything in your organization, please measure. You would measure anything before you did an intervention, you would hope, right? You would measure patient satisfaction pre and post. You would measure DMFT, pre-fluoridation intervention, etc. Also measure your footprint. And there's a huge amount of papers now, thanks to a lot of us, as well as Sheffield is now also doing life cycle assessment. So look at our papers, because you can generally find out the environmental footprint of different dental products. And this is a life cycle assessment. You can see it's huge. Lexi will say later on that this took you about a year to do, both of us. But you break the whole product down into tiny little bits. You think it's hard with a toothbrush, you should try doing a whole kidney operation, which we've also done. And the importance, again, of measuring and measuring all the stuff. It's not just about carbon footprint, it's about how we impact on land use, how much water do we use, the acidification, etc. And you can also convert it for our Public Health England colleagues in the room to disability adjusted life years. So you can work out how stuff not only impacts on carbon, but also impacts on the quality of life of our patients and of us in the room. And again, the importance of measuring. We developed this carbon calculator, which we've put online. It is just a crude Excel, but I've had quite a lot of feedback from it. We're hoping somebody puts it into an application, into an app, and makes it more user-friendly. But I've seen a few publications coming out that have used it. Again, the importance of measuring. And we've provided all of the conversion figures in the third column there and you should be able to work the maths out, any of those who are capable of an Excel. And the importance of a structure as well, right? When we were writing this presentation, we're talking about, we need to show people how to embed it in the curriculum, and we need to make sure that people are being educated. But we know from public health that education doesn't change things. You know, we can educate as much as we like with our students, but without some sort of structural change, and that includes writing a strategy and then developing the strategy for your dental hospital, nothing's really going to change. And these are what we call the sustainable dental building blocks stolen from the World Health Organization about all the other things that you need to do. So make sure that if you are changing your education of your students, you need to start thinking about how you're doing all of this, the bits that you can do in a dental hospital, and then the bits that you can do outside in your country. And then the importance of leadership and influencing. And I guess we've sort of done that by proxy, by publishing, but there's all these other things that a lot of us have been involved in, whether it's our work with the General Dental Council, influencing curriculum change through ADEE and through the SIG, but a couple of other papers that we're writing, like 12 tips on how to teach carbon footprinting to healthcare students, the work, some of the work that I've been doing in guidance for setting the standards for life cycle assessments internationally, some work that we've been done in just saying, you know, when you write a guidance, when SDCET writes a guidance, when NICE writes a guidance, we should be including sustainability in it. And that's happening now, which is good. And also the Equator paper, which is about how do we do a life cycle assessment in the same way that we use Prisma, etc., for how we do a systematic review. What boxes do we need to tick so that we can get good life cycle assessments that are internationally consistent? And the importance of feedback, which is now where I play a video, and we hope that it all works. These are students that I've worked with.
The project was definitely challenging, and it really opened my eyes to the amount of resources that go into producing even the smallest of the dental products. So it made me more environmentally aware, not just within dentistry, but also in my everyday life. Well, I do think it is very important for students to learn about sustainability and environmental impact of dentistry during our education.
I was fortunate to be introduced to sustainability in my postgraduate training at Cardiff while completing my orthodontic studies, my master's. The reason for this was any clinician would know this, but professionally and clinically you would see there's a lot of waste, especially in orthodontics, in terms of single-use plastics and arch wire cuttings. I see a future where I am in that role to be around juniors, and what I would want to incorporate is ensuring that future dentists and young trainees, they have sustainable development at the forefront of their mind always. So these are things that I could identify through my research. Every healthcare professional for that matter needs to incorporate that in their training so that it trains future generations to not forget about sustainability and not to be major contributors of waste to the healthcare profession.
While I was working at Dublin Dental University Hospital, I got involved with sustainability when I started the course in March of 2024. The course is divided in several sections. It was just generally about sustainable healthcare. It was divided into procurement sections. It was divided into project sections. I just found it really interesting because it wasn't an area I'd been involved in before. From being involved in the course, that because procurement is involved in an early stage, it gives procurement an excellent opportunity to enact sustainability into processes. Sustainability in healthcare is challenging, full stop. but it's not challenging to the point where you can't do nothing. There are loads of things you can try to do as regards reduction of gases. That was a big one, anesthetic gases. You can know reduction of the PPE, but it also showed not only what you could do, but it showed the positive effect it can have on the people, on the company, the organization itself.
I think it's something we need to make sure we're teaching, and it's at the forefront of everything that students are learning. And I think as well that starts with staff. I think a lot of us might not be as familiar with the principles of sustainable healthcare. So I think both staff and students might need to be educated together to make sure that it's being integrated into every aspect of learning. It can be really good as a postgraduate student to kind of be thinking about how to evolve your practice to become more sustainable, and then disseminating that information amongst your peers.
I never before looked deeply into the dental part of that, or all the small things from where our equipment or all materials are coming, and how the life cycle analysis is done, and what is actually inside that deep of that, or how we can analyze what happens in our clinics, and so on. So basically, yes, it broadened my vision, especially in dentistry area. So basically, as my main role is to be a professor in orthodontics, now I have some kind of sub-role about that sustainability part.
And I guess my final word is, in this part of it, is the importance of funding. We've done most of our stuff in the Dublin Dental University Hospital. In fact, all of the stuff, apart from a small €3,000 grant from the dental hospital itself. Many years ago, that enabled us to buy the software. Yet we do it all in our research time, right? We're not funded. I don't think, Lexi, you've received any funding. Nina, no, we've done it all, right? Because it was impossible to get funding. You would try and attach funding to some random grant like 10 years ago and try and say, yeah, but it is sustainable. But unless you've got a grant that is attached to sustainability, you don't get it. But now these are huge. There's a number of grants out there. It's really quite common to find a sustainability grant. I'm kind of too busy managing this one really to apply for too many more, but we were lucky using our expertise in the Dublin Dental University Hospital to partner with other organizations and now randomly lead a kidney grant. Huge kinds of money, but you do need huge amounts of money. And we are looking at not only doing the life cycle assessment of the whole kidney care pathway across Europe, but also looking at other things, benchmarking dashboards, quality improvement organizations, innovation matrix, and doing a lot with patient and public involvement. So the money is out there. It's really a nice place to be in sustainability at the moment. I would urge you all to develop your own projects and push this. And then I guess finally to wrap this up is the DDUH's journey as an institution, because we're all here today. And I was asked by the head of school to talk about how far the DDUH has come. I guess before you start embedding, I think it's easy to embed in education. I was in charge of the dental public health curriculum. I don't think Brian even knew that I just slipped sustainability in there when he was our head of school. I think developing a strategy is a lot harder. I think we were sort of on the cusp of developing, and then that COVID thing hit us, and it took us a long time to get back on our feet. I guess the message is that you need these three, well, for us, these three people to be on board: the head of school, the CEO, and our clinical director. And of course, you also need the hospital board to be saying, we need this done, and to provide appropriate resources for us to be able to do it. So once we had all of these people on board, or I think they were kind of asking me by this stage to do it, we then started developing it. We also need a strategic plan. Now, I wasn't involved at all in writing the strategic plan, but I was pleased using the find button. But there was 9 sustainability words in our oral health strategy. And basically our oral health strategy is very sustainability focused. And we have a lot of things that we are doing or plan to do. And then you also need, oh, no, well, if I had that on the last slide, you also need to make sure that in the background you've got some European Union legislation or some Irish legislation. Our Irish legislation asks us, all public sector work, all the public sector, to reduce our footprint by 50% in 4 years and 3 months. I say 4 years and 3 months because I think it's probably not going to happen. But of course, we talked about, right, when you develop a strategy, make sure you've got something to measure before. And so we use this very nice paper to base our carbon footprint calculation. But this time we didn't use it just for a clinic, but with the help of Patrick Quinn, one of our dental public health trainees, training to be a specialist, we got all the information from the dental hospital and filled this in. And you can see the results for our practice. It's not insignificant, right? I don't even know what that is. Is that 1.5 tons? It's basically 1.5 million kilograms of carbon. And our average patient has 32.7 kilograms of carbon. So that's how much we spend in terms of carbon. And this is where it gets a little bit interesting for those people who have done carbon footprint before, is the waste on the left-hand side there, the little bit from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, if you can use the thing, that's waste. We always thought waste was 1 to 2%, but it's huge. And we're noticing that in the kidney footprint too. Some of the products that industry is developing for us can be like 50 to 60% of the footprint. Like one thing that we noticed was the adhesive tape that we use on people's wounds in kidney care. 60% of it is the waste footprint. And we're noticing this strong. So if you look at our early work, you think waste, no, don't worry about it. Just chuck it away. Someone else will deal with it. But it's really huge. And then of course the packaging associated with the products adds to that waste footprint. So we noticed that waste was huge. And this gives you a map, right? This gives you a map of understanding, okay, so what are the problems and how can we fix them? And we need to clearly focus on waste. That's actually, well, I'll talk about that in a moment. There is a way out of the waste issue. And then we actually just put it to the staff. I thought, I'm not going to write a strategy. Let's get the staff and students to write it for us. So we wrote these 12 questions. And it was really, really well received. If I had sent this out 10 years ago, I would have got two or three replies. In fact, I did send this out in Public Health England in 2014. We sent 3,000 questionnaires out to dental practices. We got 3 replies, and one of them telling us to go away, in other words. But people just weren't interested. But the Dublin Dental University Hospital really engaged with these 12 questions. And now it gets really difficult to see, but the point being is I had to shuffle through 400 or 500 of these comments. So I'm going to make you do it as well. But this is basically a pivot chart with headings: biodiversity, education, energy, implementation, infection control, procurement, travel, waste. Any of you who have read papers in sustainability know any sustainable healthcare. So we follow these main themes. And then we ended up with a ridiculously huge spreadsheet. I did make a video, but actually I think I'm just going to talk through it for time. But you can see we have on the top there the type, whether it's waste issue or an implementation energy issue or an energy issue, and then some of the broad recommendations. Start monitoring progress through defined KPIs, for example. Explore renewable energy options like solar panels for the building. We're lucky in the dental hospital is that we use Trinity Power, and Trinity's gone green, so we've gone green, so we've already saved most of our energy footprint, which is great. But a whole lot of things, and you can also see the person responsible. We've got some of it's Brett for some reason, some of it's estates, some of it's our clinical director, some of it's the executive team. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to put this on people or engage with people and say, hey, would you like to do this? Because what we want to do it is make it part of their staff plan, right? Okay, cool. So what have you done in terms of your own learning? What have you done in terms of sustainability? What have you done in quality improvement? Again, it's like what Johnny said, you're embedding it into their normal workflow. And as part of that, we're also developing an education process so that all our new staff and our students have a bit of an induction as to what our sustainability ethos is at the DDUH. Here we are outside the Dublin Dental University Hospital to talk about our new sustainability strategy.
I'll be discussing with you today how we reduce it with our students, also how we set up our clinics to free and minimise our wastage here in the hospital.
We are recycling, it's a work in progress. We're recycling regular waste, dry recyclables and food waste.
The advantage of hypochlorous acid solution is that it just breaks down into water and salt, and it has zero impact on the environment.
As a food science educator in dentistry, I think it's essential that we embed our lectures in food science and nutrition within the principles of sustainability.
Thank you for your support as we work to deliver not only excellent care and education, but care that protects the future. Thank you.